why we need to test software. Now let's first ask ourselves, what is a test? A procedure intended to establish the quality, performance, or reliability of something, especially before it is taken into widespread use. Some examples you may have come across would include tests you did in school, driver's test, job interview. All of these tests happened because someone wanted to evaluate you in some sort of area before widespread use, as per the definition, or before some sort of decision was made. For example, when you were in high school, you probably had to take some tests at the end of each year to assess how well you learned the material before they let you finish that year. Another example, when you wanted to have your own car and start driving, you would have had a driving instructor watch how you drive and perform some maneuvers before you got your driver's license. You probably also would have had to take a test around the theory on the road rules where you live. And then the last example would be around the job interview. Now, during your job interview, your hiring manager and maybe some of your future peers would have asked you some questions in an effort to evaluate whether or not you are a suitable candidate for the role before offering you a job. We'll circle back to these examples later in this chapter. Now, what is software testing? This might seem like a simple question, but I think it's important to address as it sets the tone for the rest of this course. Software testing is an activity or procedure where you seek to uncover information about the software under test to help people make informed decisions. Now, why do we need to test software? When I shared what testing is, I talked about uncovering information about the software under test, the need to do an investigation. But then let's turn this around and we'll ask ourselves, what would happen if we were not to test software? If we were to just develop software and then release it to users? You may hear people say that bad things will happen, that lots of bugs will appear, and that a lot of users will be unhappy. You may then hear about examples of disastrous software projects, including outcomes where people were very adversely affected. But what people forget to say is that really just don't know what will happen if we don't test something. If we don't test, then we don't know whether bad things will happen, whether there are a lot of bugs, or whether our users will be frustrated with our application. And that is why we test. We want to have an idea of what to expect. Now note that I say an idea. If you do testing right, the information you uncover about the software under test will match or at least very closely resemble reality. That is, if you test the website and you don't find any bugs, then the software under test has very few bugs or actually has no bugs. But then you can't prove the absence of bugs. We'll talk more about this later. Another possibility, however, is that if you test a website and you don't find any bugs, it's not because the software under test is in great condition, but because your testing was poor. You see, you weren't able to find the bugs. And that can be a big problem.